welcome back to Community Voices, brought to you by Radnor Studio 21 in downtown Wayne. I'm your host, AnnaMarie Jones. And on today's show, we'll continue to get to know the GOP and Democratic candidates running for Radnor Township School Board. Laura Foran and Sydnes will be with me after the commercial break. But with me now are Democratic candidates Nancy Monahan and Jeff Jubelirer. Thank you so much for joining me, Nancy and Jeff. How are you today?
AnnaMarie.
Great, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. Well, let's get right into the questions about why you're running. So why are you running? What's motivating you guys to become school board member candidates, or members, sorry. And I'll start with you, Nancy.
Well, I'm motivated first and foremost by my children. My children are being educated in the Radnor Public School District. They're both in middle school. My son will be a 7th grader and my daughter will be an 8th grader. And given that, I'm really invested in making sure that we continue providing the excellent education that Radnor has been. Secondly, public education is really a passion for me. I was raised by parents who dedicated their professional career in public education, with my mother as a school librarian and my father as an assistant superintendent of schools. So you can more or less say I've been surrounded by public education my whole life. And I am a public education product, so to speak. I went through the public school system, K through 12, and I feel like it's really served me well. After that in college, I went on to pursue an MBA and was able to really forge a very good professional career in marketing. And now I'm taking time to spend time with my kids, and I have the time to more or less give it back to public education, and that is really kind of what's motivating me to run for school board.
Wonderful. And it seems like you've come full circle, being that your dad was an administrator.
Yes.
So that's wonderful. Good. He'd be
Exactly.
very proud.
Yeah.
And Jeff, same question goes to you.
Sure.
What's motivating you to run for school board?
Well, my family tree is a lifetime of public service. My father was in the state legislature for 32 years in Pennsylvania. My grandfather was a judge, and I grew up in central and western Pennsylvania. And I think it seeped into my blood. But not only on my father's side, but my mother's side was one of a service and volunteering. She ran a cancer center in West Virginia when my parents separated, and she got remarried and moved there. And I've always been taught that giving back is the best medicine, and it really does make you feel better. And I've done so in a way myself. I also have 2 children in the Radnor Public Schools, both be in middle school this year, 8th and 6th grade. I'm also a product of public schools. I had a wonderful public school education in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and went to a public college, Penn State. But I have really enjoyed volunteering and being invested and engaged in the Radnor schools as well, or in the Radnor community. I'm an assistant basketball coach for my one daughter's basketball team, who happens to be at one time a teammate of Nancy's daughter, who I'll just shout a plug. Caroline is a wonderful, sorry I'm embarrassing her, a wonderful player, and I got to know Nancy actually through that experience, and Nancy's husband. And it's just been wonderful growing up. I've been here since 2007, and wonderful seeing our children excel through the system, and me as well as our slate mates having opportunities to give back.
Wonderful. And so I'm going to put this question out to you first. How is membership on the school board compatible with your work and life experiences?
Well, in addition to sort of being a product of public service, I'm in communications, and that's a broad term. My whole job, day in and day out professionally, is making sure that all the people that I engage with, all of my clients, really understand in simple terms what's going on in their worlds. So I need to be transparent. I need to write and communicate clearly and effectively. Sometimes I have difficult things that I work on that I need to have communicated on behalf of my clients, and that is unfortunately no different than our schools these days. Sometimes there's difficult news to have to transmit. A lot of my work also involves public policy. My background in public service and being around public service engendered an interest in me to be interested in the types of issues. So I'm interested in education policy. I'm interested in healthcare. I'm interested, and those things can be complex. So really working on trying to simplify and so the greater public can understand what is going on. And I think at the end of the day, we debate, we have differences of opinion on policy, whether we're in the same party or opposite parties. But if we always communicate, if we're always engaged, if we always make sure that there's a mechanism for those of us to learn more and being able to be part of that, I think that's a really important skill to have on school board, and one in which I look forward to hopefully bringing to the table if I'm elected.
Great. So Nancy, same question. How is membership on the school board compatible with your work and life experiences?
Well, life experiences, for one, I'm a parent. As I mentioned before, I have 2 children. I've been a resident of Radnor Township for over 17 years, and I can't believe I've actually lived here for that long. I think it's the longest place I've lived ever at one point in my life. But I've been able to be an active community member, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And as my kids have gotten older, it's given me the opportunity to become more involved. So as they've been in school, I've been able to be a volunteer with the PTO at Wayne Elementary School, and most recently in district-wide parent-teacher organization of being a co-chair for the Radnor Speaker Series. I've also been in various roles in my church, and currently am one of the coordinators for the Interfaith Hospitality Network at Wayne Presbyterian. And just last year, I became a board of trustee at the Radnor Public Library. So collectively, it's really given me an opportunity to really kind of get involved within Radnor community, and this is just another stepping stone for that. Professionally, as I mentioned, I have had a professional marketing career over 15 years in various industries, including pharmaceutical, medical devices, and consumer products. I think that has given me the business acumen in terms of being knowledgeable about finances and how to manage a portfolio of products. Definitely has helped in my organization skills. And then I also have education experience. When I stopped working in marketing, I was an adjunct professor at Eastern University for a couple of years. So collectively, and given the fact that now I am home with my children, it's giving me the opportunity and the time to volunteer. And this is just one additional opportunity for me to basically
I want to
give
mention
back.
something, if you don't mind, AnnaMarie, that I think we all bring to the table. I noticed in Nancy answering it, it sort of brought it to the front of my mind is teamwork. In communications, in marketing, in our volunteer experience, in our nonprofit board experience, we're not alone. Everything that we do revolves around collaboration. And that's one of the reasons I think we're so happy to have such a wonderful group, of us two, Liz Duffy, Bradley Moore, and Amy Goldman, and the current members of the board, who we would serve with should we be elected. It is so important, and I think in our professional and our volunteering experience, that teamwork and being a good member of the team, knowing when to lead, knowing when to be able to sit back and govern by consensus, that's such an important part, and I think we also bring that to the table.
Right, exactly. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just serving with a sense of integrity and respect for everybody.
Yeah, regardless of opinion.
We need to set examples for our for all the students. Like, we would be the governing body of the school district, so it's important as adults that we show how we can manage it effectively and with integrity.
That's a great segue into the next question, because it's all about, what are the responsibilities of a school board collectively?
Oh, good.
So
We got
if you
to
want
answer
to,
part of that right away.
if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think that it's being prepared. By no means am I an expert in any way, shape, or form. I think it's life's experiences. I think it's experiences. Our number one job is being parent of our children, and understanding what we don't know, and the ability to ask questions. The ability also to trust. To trust that we are the governing body, but that we have a wonderful superintendent in Dr. Ken Batchelor, who is our manager, our day-to-day CEO, if you will. Doesn't mean we always have to agree with him, but once we come to a consensus, even if we're on the losing side of a vote, we've got to support that decision the best we can and support our superintendent, who we believe, and I don't want to speak for Nancy, but I certainly think we do agree that he's doing a wonderful job, and we need to support that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
What would you like to add to that?
I think just touching upon if a decision is made that you may not be for individually, it is important to support it after the majority rules. Otherwise, it would just be disruptive, and you would go in a spiral. You are a team working together, and it's really for the children.
And by the way, that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be dissenting voices.
Absolutely.
Because we think it's important. You know, Nancy, I, Liz, Bradley, and Amy all
we
sometimes
don't always agree.
Well, we don't always agree, but we also struggle with, frankly, this being a partisan position.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
Right.
When you're on the school board,
I struggle
you're not
with
a
that.
Republican or Democrat.
I totally agree with
You're
you.
who we are. I mean, we will make the decisions. Issues don't have labels.
Just for the lawmakers out there, we think it should be.
right. They should.
This
But
should be
school
overturned.
board. I mean, this is. It's,
Yeah.
we actually are very frustrated with that.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that it's a decision. Listen, we have a lot in common. We don't always agree. We're going to agree sometimes. I don't care if you have an R pin or a D pin or an
Yeah.
I pin or whatever pin. You know, for your
I'm
party.
100% on board with
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
We all are.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Well, who should set the rules governing board procedures, methods, and behaviors? Nancy.
that my-
Yeah, I'll give that one to you.
I think as a member of the board that it's important to get insight and perspective from the community, from parents, from students. I think from that information, the board and the superintendent is then responsible for setting those guidelines, as well as enforcing them. And we would do our best to ensure that we've heard you, and then from there, it's a matter of a decision has to be made. So,
Anything you'd like to add to that, Jeff?
Ditto.
Okay.
I don't think I could say it any better, so I won't repeat what Nancy said.
Okay.
I think it's coming to a decision, supporting our CEO and providing the proper board governance and being transparent to the community and how we came about making our decision to the best ability we can of being clear and open.
Right. And that leads us to, I think, one of the most important questions. What is your vision for education in our community?
I'll start. This one, I guess, my turn. One is continued excellence. Let's just take a moment to appreciate what we have in Radnor. It doesn't mean we have to stand for the status quo. It's an ever-changing ever-changing dynamic. And one of the things that makes for an excellent, I think, education at Radnor is thinking beyond academics. Thinking about our students' well-being. As parents, we can all three of us can relate to the pros and cons of social media, of bullying, of dangers that our students and adolescents, young children, older children face, and the pressure of getting into a good college, or maybe not going to college and going on for an associate's degree or going on to a vocation. We need to support all our students in their holistic selves, if you will. And that is one thing I know we all care about deeply on our team, is the well-being of our children. And by the way, and then on the other side is, we are a school district, but we're also the Radnor Township community. When we're spending tax dollars, those are tax dollars of all citizens in Radnor. Some of those citizens and our residents don't have children in the schools or choose to have their students educated at private schools. We need to recognize that they're also taxpayers, and the most of their day-to-day income, day-to-day dollars is going to Radnor schools in the form of local taxes. We will always be cognizant of that as well.
That's an important point.
It is.
Nancy, what would you like to add to that?
Ditto.
Jeff pretty much covered a lot of what I fully and wholeheartedly believe, but I think I'll keep it pretty simple. My vision is just to continue with the excellent job that Radnor School District is currently doing in terms of providing excellent education. And for me personally, I think that it's so important to provide to these kids and students with the ability for lifelong learning. It's not just these 12 or 13 years, K through 12, that they're going to be learning, whether they choose to go to college, graduate school, technical school, or getting a job right out of school. Lifelong learning does not stop.
Instilling the
And
love
so-
of learning.
Yeah, and just the ability that it doesn't, they can go to the local library and keep learning. I'm still learning today. I
Right.
still
Yeah.
want to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. Right?
We all are, I think.
So, it's just that instilling that sense of knowing that they can continue to learn for the rest of their
Oh,
life.
great. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here today. It has been wonderful to interview you and get to know why you're so passionate about getting onto school board. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
you're welcome. And with that, I want to let you know we're going to go on a brief break. And when I come back, I will be with the GOP candidates Laura Foran and Ben Sydnes. With me now are GOP candidates for Radnor Township School Board, Laura Foran and Ben Sydnes. Welcome to the show, Laura and Ben. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for providing this opportunity for all of us.
Hey, it's a lot cooler in here than it is outside, so
It
glad we're
is.
here.
It is.
Well, let's get down to it. I want to know, what is motivating you, I'll start with you, Laura, to run for Radnor Township School Board?
I think my biggest motivation is, obviously I went to Radnor and my child did, but I don't think that gives me any, special spot on the school board. But what the change I'd like to see, and if I was lucky enough to be elected, would be to reach the middle kids. I think that Radnor does an incredible job with special needs students and with our gifted, but we are consistently missing the middle. And I'd like residents of Radnor to know that it's okay to be a postman, a plumber, a tech worker. Those, they always talk about 95% of our graduates go on to college. I'd like to see 95% of our graduates sustain themselves spiritually, emotionally, financially, and I think we need to do more to encourage tech jobs and service industry jobs and less on Ivy League schools.
Okay, good answer.
Thanks.
And what motivates you to run for school board?
Well, I got a 2-year-old who's going to be joining Ithan Elementary in the next couple of years, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the family little by little, but all of my family went through Radnor schools as well as me. I actually have a keen interest in making sure that these schools continue going down the path of excellence that, fortunately I've been part of, and as well for the rest of my family. Also have a big interest in technology, seen how that's been deployed through education, have a pretty significant background in some of the information technology and computer management systems. So one of the things that I see as being a big integral part to education going forward is the application of technology, especially into the learning community. Instead of just replacing pen and paper with pad and stencil, I want to see more of a focus on using it for more transcendental type of things. So using it for things that otherwise would not be possible without the use of that pad and paper. So instead of just simply calculating a math problem that's sitting on your screen, show me how that math problem turns into a rocket going into orbit and circling the sun 3 times before coming back to land on Earth. Same thing for the direction of the district. I want to make sure that it's financially stable going forward, focusing on the mental, physical, and emotional well-being of students is more of a holistic approach, since one of the things we tend to get locked up in is the academic rigor, trying to make sure that everybody is capable of meeting a certain threshold that obviously we all aspire to be, which, to Lauren's point, it might be something like an Ivy League school, but recognizing that success takes many forms and not necessarily creating a cookie-cutter path for everyone to follow. So in that sense, I want to see more of an individualized approach to it and more of a focus on general knowledge and general capability, as well as making sure that everybody achieves their highest potential.
Great. And how is membership on the school board compatible with your work and life experiences?
Well, as I mentioned, part of my background is in that computer software technology background, and also working a lot with training and with applications of different industries into all different kinds of companies. So in that sense, I wanted to also take that into an education background and obviously apply it to what I see as being the upcoming future needs for both society and for business as a whole. And that includes everything from, like I said, the general knowledge, understanding how an entire process works from beginning to end, taking that math problem that maybe is done in isolation. We all hated calculus, we all hated trigonometry, but I want you to see how each one of those can go into something that will ultimately end up in moving towards a certain goal. So tell me how a calculus problem is going to turn this train into something that's going to be a bullet train that's going to levitate 2 inches off the ground and move at 150 miles an hour in one direction. So in that sense, I wanted to see how my background would line up with this, and obviously apply all of my background and experience, as well as leverage the experience of others that I work with in an education setting.
Wonderful. And how about you?
Wow, that was tough to follow. But excellent.
I'm going to repeat the question just so you.
Okay.
So, how is membership on the school board compatible with your work and life experiences?
Well, I've spent the last 17 years working at the district, obviously, at a low-level position, but it gave me an understanding of the day-to-day functions of the district. In addition to that, having been a union leader, I've successfully negotiated several of the contracts and have been able to kind of touch each one of the buildings. So I have a good sense of how things work. And
so what is your title with the school district?
Attendance and discipline.
Okay,
But it's
great.
clearly a clerical position. I kind of just call myself the middle school mom because I don't grade, judge, or discipline the kids. I can just be there for them. So it's a nice little role. But in terms of my work and life experience, you know, I did go to Radnor, and it wasn't the terrific experience for me that it was for a lot of other people. I struggled as one of those kids in the middle. And I am proud to say that I'm sober from drugs and alcohol for the past 20 years. So there's a piece of me that feels it's really important to carry that message to others. I don't want to make it a platform, but I certainly believe that Radnor, along with a lot of other college schools, have an issue with drugs and alcohol. We don't know which one it's going to make their life unbearable. So I'd like to be there for those kids. And that's kind of what I think I bring to the table.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
thanks.
And so what is the most important responsibility of a school board collectively, as a whole, holistically? Can we start with you?
Yeah, well, I think it's twofold. I think that we need to have consensus and a united front. I think that we are charged with directing the superintendent in how to run the day-to-day operations of the district. I in no way want to be involved in the day-to-day operations of the district, but when we set the policy, we have to hold him accountable, and that's his job to continue that mission right on down to the teachers, custodians, para, whatever that is. And I also think that in terms of within the community, I want to be, if I was lucky to be elected, part of my thing would be to be incredibly transparent about the money. Incredibly transparent. And I look at that as one of the most important things because almost 80% of our residents here don't have kids in public school. So that's a big tax bill when you're not seeing the benefit of it. I'd like to show them what the benefit is for them, but also make sure our spending is done as close to kids as possible.
Super important.
Yeah.
So Ben, question goes to you. What is the most important responsibility of the school board collectively?
To set the vision of what the district is ultimately supposed to move towards, putting in the resources, people, and policies necessary in order to make that happen, and then benchmarking and realigning is necessary once any of that ends up going into place. So similar to a lot of industrial and a lot of other functions, you see exactly that happening. If you consider yourself a director or the highest level of an organization, it's not for you to necessarily go in and tell people how to do their jobs. You just simply explain to them what it is that their customer is looking for, what it is they want to do going forward, and then set the guardrails on which they can operate and allow them to build the road and move down the path towards whatever that ultimate vision is going to be.
Okay. And who should set the rules governing board procedures, methods, and behaviors, and who should enforce them?
So the board procedures and methods are a consensus amongst the members of the boards as elected officials. You take input, obviously, from the community as to how things should operate and understand what the rules that they understand are going to be in place, and then by unanimous consent, or at the very least by a majority vote, be able to set those in place, be able to move towards what you think is going to be a good charter for the organization, and then from there continue to modify and change as needed.
Okay, great. And should I repeat the question?
No, I think I'm good, and I certainly agree with what Ben said. I do believe in finding consensus within the community and the stakeholders, so I'd like to include them a little bit more in terms of policy, but clearly the enforcement is done by the superintendent level. You know, you have someone, you get someone, or you have someone that you can trust and you can believe in, and it's truly up to he or she to deliver on the policies that we've established for them. Once we get the community input, which I really think is important, then I like to finalize the policies, but I want their input. I want all the stakeholders' input. I'm not sure that exists now. I hope it does.
And I think that this is the most important question, besides knowing what motivates you to run. But what do you foresee as the vision of education in our community? And I'll start with you, Laura.
That's a big one. Certainly, I have a drive for the kids in the middle. I think that, like I said, the special ed and the gifted are getting our best, and they're producing our best. But those kids in the middle that are hiding in plain sight and aren't seeking out the attention, or may have chaos in their homes, I do want to reach them, and I want them to know that they have something to offer. And it can be painful to be in a school where you're not comfortable, and rather than act out on the things that make you uncomfortable, to find ways to reach those kids. And I'd also like to see a lot more community service done in Radnor. Thanksgiving baskets are great, and mini-thons are terrific, but I'd like to see community service be a requirement for graduation from Radnor. I'd also like to see civics come back to our school. You can rant and rave about, you can rant and rally against the government all you want, but you better understand it before you can do it. So, does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And getting back to your point of reaching more of the middles, the kids that are slipping through, like, what is one of your plans on how to do that?
Well, what I'd like to do is invite back some of the middles and have them talk about their story. Clearly, I was one, but I've met through some fellowship programs that I'm in. I've met other kids who have gotten sober or have gotten their lives together, and I think that they would welcome the opportunity to share their message of what it was like for them and how we can make it better. Every kid just needs a soft spot to land, and the teachers and the staff and the guidance counselors are doing amazing work, but you can't get to all of them. And sometimes there's a shield of anger over them that we have to reach, and I'm not saying that the school board's going to personally do that, but it would certainly be the direction I'd like to see them going in, and that's where I want my money spent. We are spending money too far away from students and too much on big administrative salaries. So I want it spent closer to the students.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
And Ben, that question goes to you. What is your vision for education in our community?
So a lot of what Laura said, I certainly agree with. I do see the opportunity, though, to start moving towards a more personalized view on education for each individual student. I mean, we obviously have small class sizes now. We're able to interact with students on a more one-on-one basis, especially with leveraging everything from the Schoology and the various other applications that we have, but also being able to talk with them one-on-one and be able to understand what their motivations are, what their goals are, what their interests are, and then be able to tailor learning plans to each one of them. So just as we do for various people now, especially if you talk to anybody who works in anything from finance to retail to anything else, there's always a development plan for somebody, and there's always an understanding of where they need to go and how they need to benchmark their progress towards the goals that they want to do. So I see that as being integral now, especially to bringing all kids along, and not just necessarily the highest performers who get the IEPs, or the ones that are the lowest performers that are getting the, I'm sorry, it's the IEPs for one, and it's the GIEPs for the other one. But
Right, that's okay.
in the same case, you need to be able to do the same kind of thing for most kids. And yes, does it take a little bit more time? Does it take a little more interaction? On all counts, it absolutely does. But especially with all of our various capabilities with that, we are able to do that now. And we should be able to help them towards those development goals that they're looking to accomplish within their own lives. And then in the same way, we're able to also reach out whenever they're struggling, especially if they have any issues, if they have issues at home, if they have issues at school. It takes not only the learning together with the person, but also allows all of those things to work in concert with one another. So my big thing is the holistic learning with the mind, body, and spirit. If a person is emotionally capable, if a person is academically capable, but they're simply not getting enough exercise, that's where something like that will come out. And you can be able to reassess somebody's goals and what they're looking to do by following something along that line.
Right.
And you can't measure that by test scores.
Yeah.
You know, helping someone discover their passion and feel comfortable with their own skin, that's not going to come from a PSSA test.
I get it. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for being here, Laura and Ben. Your answers were spot on. You did it. You made it through the interview. And with that, I'd like to let you know that Community Voices will be interviewing the incumbents tomorrow. So please stay tuned to watch Amy Goldman and Chuck Madden as we wrap up the school board interviews. And that'll be tomorrow. So thank you. Bye for now, and I'll see you next time.